Hi friends, welcome to episode number 10 of my vlog, KidLit Corner. This is my 10th episode that I have done in the 5 or 6 months since I began my vlog. And I just want to start by saying thank you to everyone who leaves a like or a comment and watches this. Um, I know it's not a professional YouTube series or podcast or, there's no production budget or anything like that. But it's a great outlet for me to share my thoughts, my opinions, and show some love to some aspects of children's literature that I'm really passionate about, that I really love and care about, and I know a lot of you out there do as well. So it's my little corner, my little kidlit corner of the internet here in my favorite room and in our place, my little library office. And I'm really glad to have this space to be able to share um, my great passion, children's literature, and supporting the books and supporting the authors. Because it is special number 10 episode, I've decided to do a special topic, comfort in childhood reading. Comfort reading in childhood is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. In moments of blue and feeling down, it's books that provide a comfort, and that's for kids and for adults. And for me, they always have provided comfort. And now, as an adult, I often turn to my favorite books when I need pick me up and to lift my spirits. And it's more often than not always a favorite children's book that I will pick up. So I've got a small selection of some of my very favorite books that I've loved as a kid and still love now and have done since I was a kid. There's so many that I could talk about, but I narrowed it down to just a few. And I just hope this episode will shed a light on some books that you might not know of, that you might have read once but forgotten about. And maybe you'll go and seek them out or seek out your own books that you find comfort in, that you've loved since childhood. Because I think in times of difficulty, personal difficulty and difficulty in the world, uh, going back to basics, going back to roots of a favorite comfort childhood read is one of the best pieces of medicine that you can give yourself. So the first one I have is So Who Needs Lotto by Libby Haythorne. This is a chapter book that I've loved since I was about 7 or 8, I think. And it must be one of the first Libby books that I read. And I love all of Libby's books. I've got so many of her books. And this one in particular resonated with me. It's about a boy named Cosmo who feels like he's never heard at school. He doesn't have any friends. If he starts to talk about something that he loves, people talk over him. They see right through him. And I think that's something I related to and still relate to. And a lot of people relate to, I think. And then Denise comes to school and she is the polar opposite of Cosmo. He's a bit frightened of her extroversion and her loudness and her confidence until he realizes that maybe she's a little more like him than he imagined. And I love this book. And I've found with comfort childhood reads, it's often, even if you don't remember the plot, after going back to a book you might not have read for a long time, you do remember the feeling it gave you when you first read it, that emotional pull, that emotional connection. And that's what the comfort's all about. So that's one I recommend that people seek out secondhand, online, at the libraries. It's illustrated by Simon Kneebone, who illustrated a lot of great books in the 80s and 90s. And he has black and white illustrations throughout the chapters. And I just I love it. I love Libby Haythorne books. And when I pick up this book and when I read it, when I look at it, I am instantly brought back to childhood. The second one is The Sandpit War by Meredith Costain and illustrated by Craig Smith, an Aussie nibble, as you can see. Now, if you I think it's a millennial or a Gen Z, I can't remember, but you will remember these books from the the 90s into the early 2000s. And I remember this book from grade three at Gympie Central State School, reading it over and over in the school library. I first read it in grade two, and then I must have carried on over. Um, and I just loved it. It's about a group of friends who set up us in the sand pit every lunch break, and they make little houses and little villages in the sand, games like that. And then a bully comes along named Eartha and threatens to disrupt their friendship group. And it's a wonderful story about conflict and friends and bullies and getting along and all of that. But it's just a great story and so spot on in what a primary school playground is like. And I love this book because when I was that age, 7 or 8, when I first read it, as many kids do, they are influenced by things that happen in books. So when I would read this book and then I'd go to school with my friends, I would try to encourage them, hey, we should build a little village in the sand pit. Hey, we should play the games that they play in this book. I remember there were mentions of lolly snakes and things like that. And so I would want to have lolly snakes because they were in this book. And I tried for years and years to find a copy and wasn't able to until I contacted Meredith a couple of years ago, and she very kindly sent me a autograph copy, which is something I really treasure. And of course, now that I couldn't find it and now that Meredith has given me one, I see this book all the time, everywhere, every shop I go into. But it's a wonderful book and it gives me such comfort memories when I've reread it. And it's one I definitely recommend you try and find if you are a fan of the Aussie Nibble series. Boots and All by Cheryl Clarke, another popular series, Aussie Chomps, about a boy named Tony whose dad wants him to be a footy superstar, but Tony doesn't want to play football. He wants to be a comic strip artist, a cartoonist. He's creative. And I loved this book because of the relevance it had to my life and my family life. I definitely felt a lot like Tony did when I was growing up. And Cheryl writes just a terrific story. And what I think I've written her an email to say how much I love this book, and this book meant so much to me, and it really was such a pinnacle reading moment for me when I was about 10 or so. And this is a very treasured copy that I keep close by. Audrey Goes to Town by Christine Harris, illustrated by phenomenal Anne James. This is book two in the Audrey trilogy. There was three chapter books from about, I think, 2007 to 2009, and then a picture book afterwards. And I was about 11 or 12 when I read this. And even though there's three books, book two is my favorite because of the relationship Audrey has with Mrs. Patterson, who is the older woman that she stays with when Audrey and her family go into town because her mother is going to have a baby. And it's set in 1930s South Australia in a regional area. And I love the relationship between Mrs. Patterson and Audrey. And in a lot of these books, friendship is the key element. And friendship is something that I struggled with when I was younger, and I have struggled with recently as well. Recently, as in my adult life, because as a sort of shy, sensitive person, as I am, and as many creative people are, I think we often feel like we isolate ourselves from friends, or we don't deserve friendships, or they might come in different forms. A lot of my friends have always been much older than I was when I was in university, for example. I found it hard to connect with people who were my own age and my peers. And Audrey and Mrs. Patterson in this book have a wonderful connection after a bit of a rough start to their relationship, albeit. And so I always loved it for that reason. And also because it's just brilliant. It's just a brilliant story, brilliantly written. And Anne James did the pictures, and what more can you want? And the last book is one that is such a true, true childhood favorite, The Tale of Two Bad Mice. This is a comfort read, just like the others, because I've loved Beatrix Potter ever since I can remember. My mum bought me the big giant Peter Rabbit storybook of all of Beatrix Potter's stories, and this one was always my favorite. The artwork, the text in it. So it's also one that is such a classic that I return to when I need some comfort, when I need to remember wonderful childhood reading memories. And I know a lot of people know this book, of course, but maybe you might not know some of the other ones. So I encourage you to check them all out, or simply check out your own childhood reads that meant a lot to you. And when was the last time you read a childhood book that gave you comfort and gave you joy? I think it's really important to reflect and reminisce on books like that because they're children's books are in our formative years the books that make us. Literally, books like this made me. Like I'm the person I am because of books like this. And that's the power of books. That's the power of children's books. And I want more people to know that and more people to respect and cherish that. And of course, I know a lot of people watching this video would feel the same way that I do. Thank you so much for watching, friends. And until next time, happy reading.